So now it's time to add the width to the band. So I'm going to select all of these with the object selection tool right here. And let's change the width of the stroke. So we're going to stroke style. Change that to inches. And I'm going to make it 0.25 inches. And there's some variation in how thick or thin you can make the bands. If they're thicker, you have, if they're wider, you have more flexibility in how you glue them up. Like you can add some rotation or skew to the shapes. You also want to make sure there's no gaps. In this case, I have gaps, so I'm going to increase the width until I have no gaps. I'm just going to add one more for good measure. And now all the strokes right now, they exist as an appearance on the line. We don't actually have an object, but we just have a stroke, which is known to the software. So we need to actually make that stroke into an object. It looks like I forgot to ungroup some of these, so I'm going to do Command-Shift-G to make sure that all these are ungrouped. Okay, and now I'm going to go path, stroke to path. Okay, now I can see I actually have a double line inside this. Okay, so now it's time to start preparing this for printing. And so now that we don't need this big fat line anymore, we're going to reduce this down for a laser cutter print line. Now the machine that we have at the lab wants to have a stroke width of 0.01 millimeters in order to recognize it as a cut line. But if in Inkscape, we're not going to be able to see that. And so what I'm going to suggest that we do now is we set the pixel width to 1 pixel. Okay, make sure we have no fill. Okay, let's make sure, let's just check out our stroke color. Okay, here we go. The reason it wasn't showing up is because there was no stroke color on. And now let's set the color of the cut line. So the cut line has to be bright red, which is going to be FF0000. Okay, so this is a hex value, so it's red, green, and blue. So FF is 256 in hex. So yeah, each set of 2 numbers represents 1 channel of color. Inkscape has an extra set of FF. It has an extra set of digits at the end, which it uses for an alpha channel. I can reduce all this down to fit the size of my box. Okay, so now to prepare this for printing, go File, Document Properties. We're going to set the size of the document to the size of the board, which is 24 by 12. Okay, and we want to arrange these on the board to use the space most efficiently. Oops, one step I forgot about is you want to take your smallest shape and remove the interior line. So we're just going to go around to each of these points and erase them. Yeah. This bottom shape, the smallest shape, you don't want an interior line because that's your base, so you want this to be solid. What we want to do is nest them as much as we can. You don't want to go, you don't, it's better safe than sorry. You don't want them to be too tight. Because if the lines are too close together, sometimes the wood will burn and stuff like that. So let's just be as efficient as you can within reason. And just kind of cluster them together. It's also not good to have things too close to the edge either. I'd give yourself maybe a 1/4 inch on the edge or so to be safe. So something about like this. Depending on your shapes, you might be able to pack them in tighter or less tight. It just depends on what you have.